Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on the 2020 Risk Assessment Questionnaire. I'm Estella Tong, a Senior Accountant in the Compliance Registrant Regulation Branch of the Ontario Securities Commission. Joining me as presenters today are three of my colleagues in CRL. Susan Pollack is a Senior Accountant on the dealer team. Scott Lasky is a Senior Accountant on the Portfolio Manager team. Danielle Brown is an accountant on the Investment Fund Manager team. Before we begin, here is our standard disclaimer for all presentations. This is the agenda for today. After a brief introduction, we will highlight the key changes from previous years and illustrate how to navigate the questionnaire. We will also discuss common questions that we received from registrants in the past in each of the 4 sections of the questionnaire. We will walk through some examples to explain how to respond to certain questions under different scenarios. Part 4 is a summary of resources that we provide to assist you in completing the questionnaire. We will answer any questions that you may have at the end. Please enter your questions throughout this webinar so that staff can have more time to organize and prepare the answers. You can submit your questions using the GoToWebinar control panel. So what is the purpose of the Risk Assessment Questionnaire? The OSC uses a risk-based approach. We use the questionnaire to gather information that will be used to support our oversight activities and evidence-based decision-making. I will now pass it over to Dan, who's going to cover part 2 of this presentation.
Thank you, Estella. This section of the presentation covers some key changes and how to navigate the questionnaire. As part of the OSC's burden reduction initiatives, we have pre-populated certain questions in the questionnaire with responses from the firm's 2018 questionnaire. This means that if the firm completed the 2018 questionnaire, certain questions asking for static, non-financial information have been pre-populated. Firms should review the pre-populated responses and, where necessary, make changes when the response no longer accurately describes the firm's situation or practices. Firms should pay particular attention to pre-populated content in comment boxes and comments previously entered into the final overall feedback section. A comprehensive FAQ and user guide has been drafted and can be found on the OSC website. The URL link to access the FAQ and user guide is listed on this slide. As there have been some changes in how firms access their questionnaire this year, it is strongly recommended that you review the FAQ and user guide before you begin completing the questionnaire. I'm now going to walk through the process on how to create an Okta account and access your firm's questionnaire. As certain fields within the questionnaire have been pre-populated with the firm's responses to the 2018 questionnaire, we have added some additional security measures. There is now a 2-step creation and validation process to access the questionnaire. Your firm's Chief Compliance Officer would have received an email from the OSC on June 11, 2020, which included 2 URL links. The first link is used to create your firm's Okta account. It is important to note that the firm's Chief Compliance Officer's email address, as reported on the National Registration Database, is the email address associated with your firm's Okta account. When creating your Okta account and assigning a password, this email address must be used. If the firm uses a different email address than the Chief Compliance Officer's email address as listed on the National Registration Database, you will receive a not authorized notification when you attempt to access your questionnaire. If this has happened to you, please contact the Compliance Survey mailbox and we can assist you. Once a password has been assigned to the account, an email will be sent to the Chief Compliance Officer's email address to validate and set up the account. Within your Okta account, it is important to set up a forgotten password question in case you forget the password to your account. There is a step-by-step guide in the FAQ and user guide on how to set up this forgotten password question. If you do not set up a forgotten password question, you may not be able to reset your password in the future should you forget it. At this point, the Okta account has now been created and you can access your firm's questionnaire through the second URL link provided in the email to your Chief Compliance Officer on June 11th. I'm going to pause and stress this point as we have received some inquiries. Your firm's questionnaire is accessed through the second URL link once your Okta account has been created using the first link. If within your Okta account you see a screen that says you don't have any apps, this is fine and to be expected. The questionnaire is accessed through the second link provided in the email received on June 11th, not an application within the Okta account. Your Okta account password can be reset by selecting Need Help Signing In on the questionnaire login page and then clicking Forgot Password. You will be required to enter the email address associated with your Okta account. An email will be sent to that email address with a link to reset your password. You will be required to provide an answer to your forgotten password question. If you have not set up a forgotten password question, you may not be able to reset your account password. Other key changes to note are that the Prospectus Exempt Fund Form spreadsheet has been removed from the questionnaire. Each section of the questionnaire now has 2 ultimate designated person certification tick boxes. The first box certifies that the UDP has reviewed all of the pre-populated information, while the second tick box certifies that all of the responses are complete, accurate, free from any material misstatements, and not misleading in any respect. The OSC conducted a comprehensive review of all questions within the questionnaire and were able to justify deleting 8 questions. The information to be reported in the questionnaire is for the periods ended December 31st, 2018 and December 31st, 2019. August 6th, 2020 is the deadline to submit all sections of the questionnaire. Since the questionnaire is customized to your firm's registration categories, it is important for you to review the registration categories listed on your firm's homepage. If there are any discrepancies, please contact us immediately. If the information is correct, please follow the instructions and click on the link to confirm the validity of the information. This slide introduces you to icons on the toolbar. The toolbar icons and buttons functionally much the same as the 2018 questionnaire. The help icon gives you access to the help page dedicated to the session that you have open. If you are in the investment fund manager section, like noted above, the help button will bring you to the investment fund manager help page. The FAQ and user guide icon gives you access to a 2-part guide we've prepared. The FAQ provides answers to some questions regarding the questionnaire in general, whereas the user guide provides guidance with illustrations to assist you in navigating the questionnaire. It should be noted that there is a step-by-step section within the user guide on how to create your Okta account and access your firm's questionnaire. We strongly encourage you to review the information in the FAQ and user guide before you begin completing the questionnaire. The other icons are fairly self-explanatory, and so I won't talk about them here. All the web browsers listed on this slide are supported. However, Google Chrome is the recommended browser. We do not suggest using other browsers. Doing so may affect the functionality or performance of the questionnaire. Also, please be aware that after 2 hours of inactivity, the session will expire and any unsaved data will be lost. The questionnaire will not close by itself after 2 hours of inactivity. It will stay open and you can still see the page that you were working on 2 hours ago. It is only when you click the Save button to reestablish the connection to our server will a notification appear stating that your session has expired. We strongly encourage you to save frequently as we do not want you to lose any of the information entered. Mandatory fields. You will notice that some parts of the questionnaire are highlighted in yellow. Fields highlighted in yellow are considered mandatory fields. Sometimes a field can turn yellow because of the selection you've made. For example, in the illustration, the firm has selected option G, Other, provide details in the comment box below. The comment box below has now become a mandatory field. All mandatory fields must be completed before the questionnaire can be successfully submitted. Error messages. As you select your answers or enter information into the questionnaire, an error message may appear indicating that something is incorrect. The system checks if your response matches the logic associated with that question. If the response does not comply with the required logic associated with a question, then an error message will appear. The error message will indicate what is incorrect and what values are permitted. In the illustration, it shows that letters have been entered into a field that requires a numerical value. Saving the questionnaire. It is very important that you save your questionnaire frequently. Save at least every 15 minutes to avoid losing the information that you've entered. If the information is saved successfully on our secure server, you will see the same message as illustrated on this slide. You then have the choice to either go back to the home page or log out to end your session. Navigating between pages. When you attempt to navigate between pages of the questionnaire, either by clicking the previous, next, or using the go to page functionality, if there is incomplete or invalid text on the current page, an error message as illustrated on this slide will appear. You may select OK to continue navigating away or cancel to stay on the current page. Before attempting to submit your questionnaire, first save your responses. This is important to avoid any data loss during the submission process. Make sure that you're satisfied with your responses before submitting the questionnaire, as once a section has been submitted, you will no longer be able to make any changes. You will also want to make sure that your UDP has reviewed the questionnaire before it is submitted. Once you are satisfied with your responses, you can click the Submit icon on the last page of each section of the questionnaire. As noted in the illustration, the Submit button for the Investment Fund Manager section of the questionnaire can only be found on page 14. This error message is one that you would receive after attempting to submit your questionnaire. It indicates that one or more questions have not yet been completed correctly. Once you click OK, the questionnaire will take you to the first page where its question has been completed incorrectly. Once you've corrected the response, you can try submitting the questionnaire again. There are more examples of error messages in the FAQ and user guide if you want to know what they mean. Once you have successfully submitted a section of the questionnaire, you will be directed to a confirmation page as illustrated on this slide. This may take a few minutes, particularly when the server is busy, like on August 6th, the last day to submit the questionnaire. Do not close your browser until you are directed to this confirmation page. Your submission ID from the confirmation page will now also appear on the first page of this section of the questionnaire. So don't worry if you forget to keep a copy of this confirmation page. If you receive an error message regarding your submission, try closing the browser and logging in again to access the home page. This may fix the problem in most cases, and you can attempt to resubmit the questionnaire. The next part of this webinar covers common questions received from registrants. I'm now going to turn it over to Scott Lasky, who will cover some common questions related to the general section of the questionnaire.
Thanks, Dan. I will now go through some common questions we get on how to fill out the various sections of the questionnaire. I will then address some common questions relating to the general section of the questionnaire. Finally, I'll tackle some common questions from the PM section of the questionnaire. The first question is, how do you fill in various sections of the questionnaire? All registrants must complete the general section. You should only complete other sections of the questionnaire for the categories of your firm is registered in. Responses to questions in the general section should reflect all of the firm's business activities. For example, you should include all referral arrangements in the general section, regardless of the service you provide to the referred client. Responses to the questions in the other sections, for example, the investment fund manager section, should reflect only the activities the firm conducts in reliance on each registration category. The next question is, which time period should you use when answering the questions? You will find that most of the questions specify the time period you should use. If a question does not specify a time period, you should provide information as at December 31st, 2019, or for the year ended December 31st, 2019. Here are some more common questions. The first question: how do you respond if your firm has only been recently registered in one or all registration categories? Some questions may not be relevant to your firm's operations. Complete questions to the best of your ability. If necessary, answer questions as not applicable or zero and provide comments to explain that you are a new registrant and the reason why your response is not applicable in the boxes provided. Further explanations can also be provided in the final feedback comment box at the end of each section of the questionnaire. Second, how do I complete the questionnaire if there is no activity at my firm or in reliance on a particular registration category, but I have not applied to surrender registration? You are still required to complete the questionnaire, including the general section and the sections for all the registration categories of the firm. Again, please complete the questionnaire to the best of your ability. If necessary, answer questions as not applicable or zero and provide comments in the boxes provided to explain that your answer is not applicable because you are not providing any services in reliance on the registration category or you are a dormant registrant. Please also explain why you are continuing to maintain registration in Ontario in the relevant registration categories. Finally, what if your firm's business model does not fit with the questions? Similar to the answers to the first two questions, you must complete the questionnaire to the best of your ability. Use the comment boxes to explain why your answer is not applicable or zero to any of the questions. The questions on this slide deal with firms that are located outside of Ontario. All firms that are registered with the OSC have to complete the questionnaire. If your firm is registered in Ontario but located outside of Canada, fill out the general section of the questionnaire based on the firm's worldwide activities. But for each specific registration category section of the questionnaire, respond to the questions based on your firm's Canadian operations. If your firm is located within Canada, but your principal regulator is another provincial regulator, you should include all of the firm's operations when responding to the questionnaire. Finally, if your firm is registered with both the OSC and one of the SROs, for example, the MFDA, include operations that fall under your SRO membership when answering the questions for the general section. This is because responses for the general section should be at the firm level. However, when answering other sections of the questionnaire, do not include operations that fall under your SRO membership. Remember, the dealer section of the questionnaire is for the exempt market dealers and not investment dealers or mutual fund dealers. Moving on to questions related to the general section of the questionnaire. The most common questions we receive relate to how to complete the questions about referral arrangements and finder's fees. I'll tackle these over the next few slides. If you completed the 2018 Risk Assessment Questionnaire, the referral arrangement question will be partially pre-populated with information you provided in 2018. Each referral arrangement from 2018 will be included in the 2020 form. It is important to note that if the referral arrangement relates to more than 10 individuals at the referrer, information on the other individuals will have to be provided on the spreadsheet provided. The percentage of the referral fee paid to the referrer is also pre-populated. Make sure to check that that information is still accurate. For example, if you have renegotiated the referral fee with the referring firm or the individual. I copied the question relating to referral arrangements on this slide. If your firm has referral arrangements in which you pay a referral fee, you are required to answer the question depending on if you have more or less than 100 referral fee arrangements. Select B in the question if you have 100 arrangements or fewer, and C in the question if you have over 100 referral arrangements. You will be required to complete the table shown in this slide for each of the first 100 referral arrangements. As mentioned, this table may be pre-populated. It is important to ensure you add any new arrangements your firm entered into after you completed the 2018 Risk Assessment Questionnaire, or all of your firm's referral arrangements if the information is not pre-populated. Delete any pre-populated referral arrangements if you have terminated the relationship with the referral agent and paid no referral fees to that party during the relevant period. If you have more than 100 referral arrangements, complete the table shown in the previous slide for the first 100 arrangements. You will need to provide information for any remaining referral arrangements in a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is located in a link in question G7, as shown on the slide. Just click on the link to download the spreadsheet. Once the spreadsheet is complete, you can attach it to the questionnaire by clicking on the paperclip icon in question G7, also shown on the slide. This is a similar process to attaching a document to an email. Question G8 of the general section asks about finder's fees. The form provides a definition of a finder as a person who identifies or solicits potential purchasers of securities. A common question we receive is, what is the difference between a referral arrangement and an arrangement in which a finder's fee is paid? Finder's fees and referral fees are often used interchangeably by the industry. Referral arrangements and referral fees are defined in section 13.7 of National Instrument 31103. Guidance on finder's fees and finder's arrangements can be found in two CRR annual reports. The 2019 annual report, OSC Staff Notice 33750, contains a section with the heading Activities of Finders in the Context of Private Placements and Prospectus Offerings. The 2014 annual report, OSC Staff Notice 33745, contains a section with the heading Referral Arrangements and Finders. I recommend referring to these sources to determine whether an arrangement you have is a finder's arrangement. Similar to the referral fee question, this question will be pre-populated with the information if you completed the 2018 Risk Assessment Questionnaire. It is important to note that if the finder's arrangement relates to more than 10 individuals of the finder, information on the other individuals will have to be provided on the spreadsheet provided in the question. Also similar to the referral fee question, ensure that the percentage of the fee or the commission paid to the finder is still correct if this information is pre-populated. This slide shows the table that has to be completed for each finder's arrangement. Make sure to add any new arrangements or delete any arrangements if this information is pre-populated. That concludes the common questions received on the general section of the questionnaire. I will now address some of the common questions we received for the PM section. We often get asked, what is the difference between advising activities and dealing activities, and how should you report each activity in the questionnaire? Where the firm has entered into an advisory agreement or an investment management agreement with the clients to provide advisory services to them, this is generally considered advising activity and should be included in your responses to the questionnaire in the PM section of the questionnaire. An activity where the firm is selling, distributing, or trading exempt market products to clients that do not have an advisory relationship with the firm is more likely to be dealing activity and should be included in your response in the questions in the EMD section of the questionnaire. I want to draw your attention to question P1 of the questionnaire, which is asking about your assets under management for your Canadian advisory services as at December 31st, 2019 and December 31st, 2018. Please note, if a firm has its principal office outside of Canada, it is to provide the AUM for only its Canadian clients. Your response will separate the AUM based on the type of client that the firm has. Include individual clients on row A, institutional clients on row B, and investment funds where your firm is both the PM and the IFM on row C. I will briefly explain the difference between individual and institutional clients. Individuals are natural persons and also include their personal holding companies, foundations, or trusts. Institutional clients would include non-individuals such as investment funds, pension plans, corporations, university endowments, charitable organizations, and any other type of client that is not an individual. Investment funds that you act as a sub-advisor for should be included in row B. There may be instances where some PMs invest their managed account clients in investment funds that it also manages. To avoid double counting, you should include these assets only in row A or row B, depending on the nature of the managed account client. The following slide will provide you with two examples to illustrate this. Example 1. If you have assets under management of $1 million from individual managed account clients, $1 million from institutional managed account clients, and both are invested in your proprietary investment funds, enter $1 million in row A, individuals, $1 million in row B, institutions, and 0 in row C for investment funds. Example 2. If you have assets under management of $2 million invested in your proprietary investment funds, but units of the funds are distributed by third parties or by you acting as an exempt market dealer, enter $2 million in row C, investment funds, and 0 in both of rows A and B. Question P2 asks you to provide the approximate percentage of your total assets under management for each investment product as applicable. For investment funds managed by your firm, specify the underlying types of securities held within the investment fund, such as equities or fixed income. For investment funds managed by another party that you purchase on behalf of your clients, specify the type of the fund, such as the prospectus qualified funds or exchange traded funds. The next question, P5, asks if you are actively involved in the management of the companies that you invest in for your clients. When answering this question, you should consider the activities of your registered individuals, your firm's officers, directors, employees, and permitted individuals. Question P6 will ask you for information on the residency of your clients. When you identify the number of clients that the firm has in each jurisdiction, you should provide the number of clients that the firm has and not the number of accounts or the number of client households it has. I have two examples for you to illustrate this. 1. The firm manages accounts for two individuals that are spouses. Both have an unregistered account, both have an RRSP account, they have a joint account and an account for a holding company. The firm should reflect the client relationship with these individuals as two clients in the relevant jurisdiction in the questionnaire. The second example. The firm manages the accounts for an individual and their family members. The individual has an unregistered account, an RRSP account, and an account in trust for each of their 3 children. The firm should reflect this client relationship with this family as one client in the relevant jurisdiction in the questionnaire. Another area where we typically get a lot of questions relates to question P7, which asks you for information on the age of your individual clients. As previously mentioned, question P1 defines individuals as a natural person and their personal holding companies, foundations, or trusts. The client has several different holding companies, foundations, or trusts. The firm should only count the client relationship once when calculating the percentage of clients over 60. I'll provide an example to illustrate. A client is 65 years old, has an unregistered account, an account for a holding company, and an account for a family trust. This client relationship should only be counted once when the firm calculates its percentage of individual clients that are 60 years or older. This slide deals with question P9, which asks you for information of the custodians used by the firm's managed account clients to hold assets in their investment portfolios as of December 31st, 2019. You still need to include information here if your clients select their own custodians. To avoid double counting, do not include the custodian information for the investment funds that you manage in your response to this question. This information is collected in the questions for the investment fund manager. It is important for you to include the full legal name of the custodian in your response. The table in the questionnaire allows you to enter up to 20 custodians. If your firm's clients use more than 20 custodians, Please provide the additional custodian information in the final overall feedback comment box, which you will find at the end of the PM section. One of the questions you have to answer for each custodian is the custodian functionally independent from your firm? I'll go through a few examples to show you when a custodian would not be considered functionally independent of your firm. The first example, your firm and the custodian share the same mind and management such that your firm and the custodian would not reasonably be considered to be operating independently. The second example, the custodian activities are performed by personnel that are not separate from or unable to act independently from personnel of your firm. Finally, the third example, there is a lack of systems and controls to ensure the functional independence of personnel performing the custodial function. I'll now pass it back to Dan, who will go through common questions for the IFM section of the questionnaire.
Thank you, Scott. I'm now going to cover a few questions in the investment fund manager section of the questionnaire. Question F1 asks the firm to provide the assets under management where the firm is the investment fund manager. If the firm has a fund-of-fund structure, then the assets under management should only be counted once. For example, and as illustrated on this slide, if the top fund has an AUM of $50, which is 100% invested in the bottom fund, which has an AUM of $100, and the firm is the IFM for both funds, then the firm should report a total of 2 funds and an AUM of $100. When answering question F4 on custodial information, it is important for the firm to include the full legal name of the custodian. Without the full legal name, we may not know which entity among a number of affiliated entities is the actual custodian. The total AUM reported in this question should match the total AUM reported in question F1, assuming the firm does not act as the IFM for any fund-of-fund structures. Up to 20 rows can be added to this question by clicking the Add Row button. If the firm requires more than 20 rows, then that information should be entered into the final overall feedback box on the last page of the IFM section. If the firm is the investment fund manager for any prospectus qualified funds that have at least a full year of performance, then the firm is required to report the performance returns in question F3. Performance returns should be reported net of fees. Report this information at the fund level or fund series level. If the firm is reporting performance returns at the fund series level, please use the fund series that has the greatest assets under management. Question F17 on fund terminations and question F18 on fund mergers in the investment fund manager section of the questionnaire have a similar functionality. Up to 15 rows can be added to these questions by clicking the Add Row to A and B button. If the firm requires more than 15 rows, then that information should be entered into the final overall feedback box on the last page of the IFM section. There has been an auto-sum functionality incorporated into both of these questions, which will total either merger or termination costs entered by the firm and return a total cost figure in the rightmost column as shown in the illustration above. Question F19 in the investment fund manager section asks the firm to report net asset value errors in the past 12 months ended December 31st, 2019. We have explored obtaining NAV error information directly from the firm's periodic filings. However, we are unable to use the reporting information for purposes of the risk assessment questionnaire due to limitations in the functionality of the current filing system. The periodic filings are received in various formats, sometimes as open text files, sometimes as PDF files, and so to pull this information and organize it within the context of the risk assessment questionnaire database is not something that we can do at this time. We do receive a lot of comments on this question, and so the easiest way to explain this question is to provide a practical example. The example scenario is reported on the slide and illustrates how this question should be answered. The background is that an incident affects the valuation of a fund over a 3-day period. The fund has 2 classes of security holders. NAV is struck daily, and the incident results in 6 restatements of NAV. The firm would report this information as 1 NAV error and a total of 6 NAV restatements. I'm now going to turn it over to Susan Pollock, who will cover some common questions in the exempt market dealer section.
The exempt market dealer section of the questionnaire is applicable to all firms registered in Ontario as an exempt market dealer or a restricted dealer. If your firm happens to be registered in another category, such as portfolio manager, this section is where you would record only your firm's dealer activity, which, as Scott discussed earlier, the dealer section is where you would record the activity that's related to clients where you're distributing a product to or performing a service for. But if you do have a managed account client, that activity likely belongs in the portfolio manager section of the questionnaire. Also, the questions are meant to capture activity only for the period that we've requested. If you have any other comments about future plans for your firm or anything else that you'd like to add, there's a giant comment box at the end of this section of the questionnaire that you can add any information. One of the first questions in the dealer section asks for information based on the number of your firm's clients that are investor clients and the capital raised from those clients. Generally, your investor clients are all clients that your firm has provided a service to or distribute a product to during the 2-year period that we've requested. Clients can be people or companies and can include both current clients that are new during the review period or maybe a former client that made a further purchase during the review period, or if you've provided a service to a client during the review period. Please don't provide information based on the number of transactions during the period, but based on the unique number of clients. Some investors may have made multiple purchases during the 2 years, but for the purpose of this questionnaire, we are looking for the actual number of individual clients. For completing the information about the capital raised from your investors, what we're looking for is the total amount of funds that were paid by the investors for the products they purchased during the review period. We would like the gross amount, so don't deduct any fees or commissions from the total. And we're looking for Canadian dollars. So if you have had transactions that were denominated in a foreign currency, a reasonable exchange rate can be applied. In the past, we've received a number of questions about what to include in the revenue question. We are looking for revenue that is directly related to your firm's dealing activities. We understand that some firms may not separately record revenue for their dealer activity. Where this is the case, you can provide an estimate of revenue related to dealing and include comments in the comment box on that question as to how you arrived at that estimate. For example, your firm might also be an investment fund manager that receives compensation in other ways. Other examples of what dealer revenue is are included in the actual question on the questionnaire, which is in this case, question 6. And it includes some examples of what you might want to include in that question for revenue. When you get to questions 7 and 8, you will see that we are asking for the types of products your firm distributes and the type of business or industry of those products, and whether your firm is related or connected to the issuers of those products. The related and connected definitions are included at the beginning of question 9 and should help you with responding to this question accurately. Also, if the product your firm is distributing is difficult to fit into one of the categories that we've provided in the question, just choose the main business or industry of the product, and there's a comment box at the bottom of the question for you to provide further information. The last questions where we sometimes see confusion in filling out the questionnaire are related to sales commissions and trailing commissions. This slide includes a general definition of the two types of commissions. Typically, sales commissions are one-time payments, whereas trailing commissions are ongoing payments received by the firm. I'm going to pass the mic back to Estella now, who has some information about resources you might find useful and information about a COVID-19 survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. This is a summary of the resources that we provide to assist you in completing the questionnaire. We strongly recommend you to review the materials first, which is going to assist you in setting up your Okta account, navigating the electronic forms, and answering certain questions in the questionnaire. This concludes our presentation on the questionnaire. Before we start answering your questions, I would like to take a few minutes to talk about the COVID-19 survey. The purpose of the COVID-19 survey is to gather information to better understand the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on registrants' business operations and activities. The survey period covers the first 6 months of this year. We are mindful of the resources required to complete both the questionnaire and the survey, so we have kept the number of questions and data points to a minimum. Not all the questions are applicable to our firm. It all depends on the firm's registration category and business model. They are what I call lead questions that ask you, for example, if the firm is registered as an IFM. If you answer no, the system would skip the questions that are applicable to an IFM and move on to the next set of questions. The survey will be sent out on July 9th, and the due date is August 6th, the same day as the questionnaire. The survey will only be sent to firms domiciled in Ontario, where the OSC is the principal regulator. For further clarity, we will not send a survey to PR firms domiciled outside of Ontario. For example, PR firms domiciled in the States. Having said that, we will send a survey to some firms where we are not the principal regulator, simply because we are collecting the information on their behalf. The COVID-19 survey uses a different technology. Unlike the risk assessment questionnaire, you must complete the survey in one single sitting. It is because the survey form does not have the save function. It also does not have a print function. We're going to provide a copy of the survey in Word format, so you can use it as a working copy to gather all the information first before entering the information into the survey form. Please keep the Word document as your record. Instructions to complete the survey will be sent along with the survey itself. We will now move on to the Q&A session.